City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the February 11th regular City Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Dodge.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Escobar.
Here.
Councilmember Sowers. Here. Councilmember Leidy will be absent. Councilmember Downing. Here. Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Duran-Mollica.
Here.
Councilmember Wilford.
Here. Would you stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Heather, is there any response to citizen inquiry this evening?
I do have an update on the CRM monthly stats for council this evening. For the month of January, it's hard to believe we're already in February of the new year. So in January, we had a total of 67 opened requests. 66 of those were closed. The primary method was via our website at 62%, employee entered either via phone or email at 6%, and then the mobile app usage was at 32%. The top 4 topics included general code enforcement concerns, abandoned vehicles, curbside recycling, and requests for a new trash cart. And in terms of closeout of requests, 36 of those were done within 3 days. 19 of those were done between 4 and 7 days. 3 were closed out between 8 and 11 days, and 7 of those requests took 12 or more days to close out.
Okay. Any questions for Heather?
Thank you. Quick question, Heather. Are we trending upward in our app usage, or do you remember what December's percentage was? I'm not.
Off the top of my head, I don't. I feel like,
Are we
Bob, do you know off the top of your head? I feel like it's a couple percent, a couple percentage points down.
Yeah, and I think that's because of winter.
Okay.
There's more requesting than during the summer.
Okay.
I'll go back and look. I feel like we got up to about 34% last year. I don't know if any of you have those figures from, but I'll look and I'll email council and let you know.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious how we're still advertising the app and making sure that people are still aware of it because it's so easy.
Yes, we are. So I'll follow up and send an email.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any agenda additions or deletions from council? All right, none. We will move to presentation. Oh, no, we have, I'm sorry, an interview this evening. God, I was going to skip right over you, Mindy. Mindy Petter is here, and she would like to join the Planning Commission. So if you'd like to come forward to the dais.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Thanks for having me.
You want to share a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in joining the Planning Commission?
Certainly. My name's Mindy Petter. I am a Northglenn native, and after a 15-year stint in California, have returned home, and I'm currently residing in Northglenn. I returned with about 3 extra bodies, my husband and 2 children. And it's just a really great feeling seeing my kids go to the elementary school that I grew up in and just re-engaging myself in the community that I thrived in my youth. My background is in development, real estate, construction, and the opening just really called to me, being able to engage both with our citizenry, our businesses, and the implementation of this new Unified Development Ordinance was something that just really stuck out to me. So I do have experience both from a development standpoint or an applicant standpoint in dealing with planning commissions and reading codes and zones. So this would be a first time for me on the other side of the podium. But I feel I'm more than qualified, and obviously leaning on staff for their input and interpretation of different projects. But again, to ensure the livelihood of our neighborhood, and that the projects that we want in our neighborhood meet the criteria that we've set forth. So I would be honored if you would consider me for Planning Commission. It's something I feel I would be very good at, and it would be I think the best and most efficient way for me to give back to my community.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from council members?
No questions, just one of the most impressive applications I've ever seen.
Thank you.
And thank you for volunteering.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Marcy?
Thanks for applying. I was intrigued by the Citizens Planning Academy that you attended. Can you tell us a little bit about that and maybe a big takeaway you had?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway, well, let me explain it first. So it was something that was actually put on by the city of Santa Barbara in conjunction with the APA. And what they did was they actually invited the citizenry, the public, to come in and hear things like, I don't know if too many people know what CEQA is, but essentially it's the California state standards for getting any sort of coastal project through their system. There's a lot of environmental mitigation and impact that you have to do. And so there's so much going on statewide, and then you have some things at the city and county levels that they brought in all these experts, all these engineers, these planners, to just talk about the process, whether you were doing a light industrial complex or a redevelopment or an urban infill. They talked about, the differences between municipal or discretionary type decisions and just kind of over-the-counter type applications. So it was really enlightening. I think my biggest takeaway is how daft the public can be. They really don't understand unless you engage them, in these sort of processes, like I've seen done here in Northglenn with the UDO. They're just not going to know. They're not going to understand, and it seems like a really terrifying process doing anything with, your property or your business.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. Thank you so much for applying. I think that we are going to be very lucky to have your expertise on the Planning Commission. And the only other thing was I really appreciated the joke that you included. Yes. That was very refreshing. I don't think I've ever seen an application for a board or commission that had a joke, so thank you.
Thank you. Planning Commission, members of Planning Commission also enjoyed it, so thank you.
Great.
That's true. The joke was very funny, and I just wanted to let everyone know that you have been attending the Planning Commission meetings, which, and was very lucky for us. And also, she's reached out and gone to the outreach for the UDO meeting, so she's already been involved. So, yeah, and the Planning Commission looked at you favorably. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? So I would just like to say, of course, I already told you, you're hired. It's easy because your application is incredible.
Thank you.
But I would also like to say that you're going to be in the line of the family legacy of Northglenn involvement with Mom and Grandma. Grandma's here tonight. I'm so glad to see her. She's looking really good. So thanks for coming, Diane. But, I mean, you come from a long line of people who really love the city and really get involved. So it's great, and it'll be great to have you. Thanks for applying.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll move to presentations of the Q4 and 2018 year-end economic development report with Debbie.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Debbie Tuttle, Economic Development Manager and the NERA Executive Director. Tonight, I'm going to do a short PowerPoint on the year end. And do we need to get that started? Do I need to start something, Bob? It's not clicking in. There we go. Helps to turn it on, right? While he's fixing that, let's go over a few things. So in front of you and in the back for the public, this is hot off the press. This is our 2018 Economic Development Report. In the past, we've just done a one piece of paper, both sides, and I think this is really nice. It brings in all of the stats that we've done, and on the back it has a Northglenn in the glance. So I encourage you to look over this. I use this at everything, like when we do presentations, I go to ICSC conferences. This is a marketing material. It's okay now? Good, all right. And it's warming up, I can tell that. Tonight we're going to go over the recap. You've got the report there, so it's talking a lot about what happened in Q4. But I'm going to mainly go over what's happening for the entire year for tonight. I did want to do a special thank you and shout out to John Eisel for doing this and putting this together in a very short period of time. We started on this on Thursday, and he has it for us today. So good job, John. Also, I know you all have been into our office, in the ED office, but we hired Shannon Fields as our specialist, our economic development specialist. If you haven't stopped by to meet her, please do. She's doing a fantastic job. I can't tell you what good things I have to say about her. They're wonderful. So with that, we're going to go over the ED report. Oops. There we go. So just an ED 101. I know you all know this, but what economic development looks at, what we track, so you'll see this as we start going through the report, is job creation, capital investment, new taxes, quality of life, new services to our community, infrastructure improvements, diversifying our business community, attraction of new businesses, and also really important to us is the retention and expansion of our existing businesses. So ED indicators for last year, we had 162,000 square feet absorbed in retail, office, and industrial space. We had 82 new businesses. This is really interesting to me. 51 storefronts and 31 home base. Look how many home base that we continue to have. That's incredible. Truly an entrepreneurial community that we do have. We had 342 new storefront jobs. The unemployment rate did rise to 4.1, which we'll talk about in just a minute here. And just as an FYI, we haven't had our unemployment that high since December of 2014, which was at 4.3. I talked to the Colorado Department of Employment and Labor, and it was like, why has this gone up so much? We haven't had anybody closing. And they said that we're a small community in the big county piece, and the county's rates went up, and so ours went up too. So just the sky is not falling. We haven't seen any major layoffs or closures, but that is what the Colorado Department of Labor has done. They kind of average it out over all the cities, the 9 cities. We had 63 new business prospects looking to relocate here in Northglenn, and we did 50 business retention visits. Again, unemployment chart, this kind of shows you kind of the ups and downs. We were at 3.5 last year at the same time. Commercial real estate. Office, we have 36 buildings that we have. The vacancy rates is what we look at, which is a 4.5. And then last year at the same time, we were at 8.4. So we have really filled a lot of our office space. Industrial buildings, we have 46. Our average for Q4 for the vacancy is 2.2, which is higher than we've had actually in the last year. It's been 1% or even lower than 1%. We had one big commercial building that is an investor building that went on the market, and that's why that shot up to 2.2. Retail, we have 128 retail units and retail buildings, I will say, and the vacancy rate for retail is at 6.9, still lower than it was last year at this time at 7.3. The housing market. So let's talk about this a little bit. I give this to you on a quarterly basis. This does come from Value Check. So we kind of did the 6 cities that are near us. So Brighton, Broomfield, Commerce City, Northglenn, Thornton, and Westminster. So the median list price for Northglenn houses is $345,000. You can look at all the other cities and see the dramatic the lower price of the Northglenn houses compared to the others. The list prices, again, the range, we've got buildings or houses on the market, excuse me, from 289 to 575. That's why we use that median, because you don't want to just average out everything. Average days is 36, so we're the lowest of those 6 cities. And inventory, we have 45 houses at the end of December that was on the market. Any questions before I move forward on this? The other thing I will say is the lease cost for rentals is $1,098. So again, much lower than the metro area. ED marketing, what we had done last year, one of the big things that we did for marketing was our new website. So as a part of the greater design of the city's website, the ED division launched a new self-contained site. And you can see that at northglenn.org/biz. We spent a lot of time last year on our website. And as with any website, we're refining it as we go through this and trying to make it even easier for our businesses and developers, site selectors to actually navigate through here. But it's definitely a big improvement of where we were before. Again, it's a work in process. Last year we had 14,000 visits on our ED page, and our Shop Northglenn directory we had almost 19,000. So we're always trying to promote Shop Northglenn first, and so we had about 19, almost 2,000 visit there. So I think that was great. We also put out our e-newsletter every single month. We have 685 subscribers, and the open rate is 46%, 46.5%. So people are clicking through there. That's a relatively high rate for actually opening up the e-newsletter. Social media impressions, we had over 100,000 and followers of 162. Our goal this year is to get more followers on social media and to be really promoting our social media more. We have 2 lunch and learns, and we also had 2 business after hours. We also did the annual business survey. And so there was a lot going on, as well as, you know, we did the Small Business Saturday and the Count the Lights and all of those efforts, putting marketing materials together. The one thing that we did do last year was we created 4 videos for marketing purposes that are on our website, and that's been very successful to sell Northglenn. Huron Center redevelopment project, yahoo! We've got it done, right? So this was a $13.5 million public-private partnership between Evergreen, Impala, and Nura. 3 new businesses added another $3 million in the investments. So of course that was Arby's, Save-A-Lot, and AutoZone. So in essence, it was a $16.5 million investment in our community. It created 150 new jobs, and truly it is a poster redevelopment for URA projects of how to really do good projects and spend the money wisely. So Nura invested $3.4 million on this project. So a couple, just to go over those, you're all familiar with them, but the AutoZone, 35,000 square foot mega hub, over 1,000 specialty parts. A lot of people don't realize this is a fulfillment center in the back. It looks like a store in the front, but they are serving the front range from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins. 900 or almost $1 million capital investment and 100 new jobs to our community. Arby's. 2,295 square feet, almost another $1 million in capital investment and 25 new jobs, and a great restaurant, mostly in the close proximity of the Northglenn High School. I think it's definitely an asset to our community. Save-A-Lot, most of you were there, 22,140 square feet, another $1 million capital investment and 23 new jobs. This is, Northglenn has the first prototype of this type in the nation. So they tried the new prototype here in Northglenn. So I think that says a lot. They also, as you all know, did the business survey, or the community survey, which they went out to the community and asked what they wanted, and they implemented many of those changes into the store. Oops. The Court Sports Complex, 31,500 square feet. They started moving dirt in December. We did just recently break ground on that, even though there was lots of dirt already moved. That will be a $4.8 million capital investment and 25 new jobs. The Starbucks, one of my favorites. I just love those Starbucks. It was funny because when I first started here in the city of Northglenn, we never had a Starbucks, and now we have 4. I said, my goal is to get 1 Starbucks in Northglenn. So they rebuilt, so they leveled the bank that was there before, the credit union, built the new Starbucks, and the Wadsworth Development did that, $1.5 million capital investment and 25 new jobs. But as you know, we had the little Starbucks, which was also the first in the nation for the container stores, and it was over on 104th, and they said, well, that's just too close, right, to the other one. It'll be competition. I said, you can't take that. We love our little Starbucks. So as you know, we moved it to 108th and Washington, and it's very successful. Both of them are doing great. So the retention of 25 new jobs. Lots of different ribbon cuttings that we did. Business retention and expansions. Office Depot, they're first in the nation for the prototype store here. As you know, they were over on the other side of the marketplace. They were going to leave Northglenn because they were way too big and they needed to right size. So we were able to retain him here in Northglenn, which is great news, and they're in 18,000 square feet there, and they have about 30 jobs there. KFC, our longest standing, one of our longest standing businesses, 50 years. So this is one that will be on our 50-year list here. They leveled that restaurant and put a new KFC in the same place. Atlas, they spent over $1.5 million on renovations to their existing building. These are all existing businesses. Boondocks put in the ropes course, which was over $500,000, and they're already investing and doing construction right now on making more improvements to that center. This will be the 4th expansion and renovations that they've done. NERA grants and incentives. NERA invested $483,000 last year on 15 businesses, leveraging $9.5 million in private commercial improvements. We did 14 business grants for $103,000. The courts incentive we did at $280,000, and then Huron Center's signage. The one thing I think this is important to point out for everybody is the signage. They were just going to slap up the old signs and put anything they wanted up there. NERA wanted to make sure this was a quality development, and because of everything that we invested in there, we spent a lot of money on signage, almost $100,000, and also on the facades. So we did the facades to make sure everything looked consistent and that everything looked like it was a new shopping center. So I think that was a great move for us. We've got 2 new car washes that are going to be coming in this year, but they came in for grants last year, so you'll see 2 of those being renovated this year. But those are $1.5 million renovations to each one of those car lots. And they actually have a dog washing in there. It's kind of incredible, the new styles they have. Again, as we talked about, the NERA Huron signs and facades, NERA invested $99,000, consistent look and feel. And again, that's my report, and if there's any questions, it's been an exciting year.
Thanks, Debbie. Are there questions?
Hi.
Hi.
You know, I saw in your report, and I also read in the paper how the Global Village Academy got the land up in Thornton and everything. When do you anticipate them leaving Northglenn?
Well, they've bought the land. I've left many messages over at Global Villages, to be honest with you, and they haven't called me back. I would say at least 2 years and maybe even longer, because they're going to have to construct the entire building.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
So I am trying to get a better update for you of actual timing on that.
Okay.
Other questions? None? Debbie, it was a great year. Thank you always for working tirelessly. I mean, with new businesses, attracting new business, keeping the old businesses here. You go above and beyond, so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? Debbie, if you just turn around and look this way, this is our new, we're going to call him our intern, Spencer.
Oh, wonderful.
And he's going to come to our NERA meeting on Wednesday.
Wonderful. Great. Well, welcome.
We're just going to integrate him all into the city and keep him busy.
Terrific. Well, I'd love to sit down and chat with you a little bit more. Mercy, did you have something that you wanted to add? Or?
Well, I was just going to add that for a team of 2, you guys do a lot of work in the Economic Development Office between meeting with all of our businesses and supporting them with issues that come up throughout the year. It's pretty impressive what you guys accomplish, and I just hope that everybody on council really gets and sees that, as well as everybody in our community. Thanks for your
Thank you
work.
very much. I appreciate that. Anything else?
Nothing.
Okay,
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Debbie. All right, we will move to public invited to be heard, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. I do have one name that is signed up on the sign-in sheet, and that is John... Algie.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not spelled like algae, it's a little bit different. Well, welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. So my name is John Algie, and I reside at 4187 East 95th Drive in Thornton. And so good evening, Mayor Dodge and members of council. I'm honored to be in front of you this evening to speak about this great event. I'm the newest Rotarian of the Rotary Club of Northglenn, Thornton, and today is our launch day for our annual food drive. And it's going to be 6 weeks long. We're going to be collecting food through March 22nd. Okay. And our goal is to collect food in a friendly competition between the cities of Northglenn and Thornton, and to assist 4 agencies in their ongoing mission to fight hunger here. And in Northglenn, we have 2 agencies in Northglenn and 2 in Thornton. The 2 Northglenn agencies are Immaculate Heart of Mary Food Bank and Good Shepherd Presbyterian Church. And in Thornton, the Thornton Food Bank and Food for Hope. Boxes and polycarts are already in place. They're located here at Northglenn City Hall, next door at the Northglenn Recreation Center, in Thornton at Thornton City Hall and Carpenter Recreation Center. In fact, I'll be speaking to Thornton City Council tomorrow evening about this. In addition, a new thing this year, we're kind of expanding it, partly because of me being here. I've successfully recruited our 3 breweries that are proud to call Northglenn and Thornton our home. And they are going to be participating this year. So that's Periodic Brewing here in Northglenn, and then Thornton's Satire Brewing Company and Mother Tucker Brewery. So signs and flyers are in order. They're not in yet, but they are ordered. They should be in place by the end of the week, if not sooner. And I'll make sure that I will go around to all the places and make sure that gets done. So, also, the 3 Anythink libraries in Thornton have graciously allowed us to distribute flyers there. They're unable to have food stored there, but they are going to help us by having flyers so we can spread the word out. So, and that's about all I have. You'll see me again, obviously, as the food drive progresses and at the end. So I've had the honor also of meeting some of you already in my 6 months I've been here in Thornton, Northglenn area. And I will let you go with that. I thank you all for your time, and I look forward to working with you. And I'm not going to take sides in this. I mean, I do live in Thornton, because in closing, at the end of the day, it's about the folks that depend on these 4 agencies for food that are the real winners. So.
Well, you need to tell Thornton that it's game on.
Okay.
And is our thing
I will do that.
upstairs?
I'm sorry?
Is the Northglenn receptacle upstairs?
Okay.
Upstairs,
rec center and
All right. Oh, go Thornton. I will say that. But thank you again, guys, and take care. All right, have a good night.
Thank you, John.
Bye-bye.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening? All right, seeing no one come forward, we will move to the Legislative Policy Committee update. Jenny?
Thank you, Mayor. We met this evening and did a debrief of the legislative dinner and wanted to extend our gratitude to everyone for participating. If you have any feedback about the venue or about the content program, feel free to send that our way. We're certainly open to suggestions for the future, but overall think that it went pretty well. Secondly, we took a look at a number of pieces of legislation and are going to be moving forward in supporting 4 pieces, which I'll share with you. So one is Senate Bill 1912, and this is public safety use of mobile electronic devices while driving. That is a support position. And then Senate Bill 1, public safety, it's another public safety initiative, expand medication-assisted treatment pilot program. Then House Bill 1073, public safety information sharing program, also a support. And then the last one that we moved to support was House Bill 1113, protect water quality adverse mining impacts. So that's all from us for us this evening.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much for putting that together. It was a great evening. The only thing that I would really like maybe next time, just to toss it out there, because I'm bad at sending emails when it's not, me responding to one. I really would have liked, and this is not a criticism of you guys at all, but if we were in a private room, because it got so noisy, I can't hear anything after a while.
Yes, and I think that's something we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
So we're looking for a better location.
Yeah, but everything else was great. I mean, it was great conversations, it was really great. Thank you for putting that together.
Of course, and actually, I want to, I want to acknowledge, City Manager Geyer as well as Susan Baca. Really, I mean, it was them who put it together. We just showed up. So thank you so much for all of your efforts.
All right, then we will move to our consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Come back, Financial.
I'm sorry, I did skip right over you. I'm sorry, Jason.
He's ready to go home.
I know.
I know, he was almost out the door.
He's ready to go.
Sorry, we will have our December 2018 financial report update. Thanks, Jason.
Well, thank you for
Sorry.
having me, Mayor, council members. I appreciate it.
I say.
So as you mentioned, the finance report for 2018. This is going to be a little bit confusing because we're still working on closing out the end of the year, so this is kind of cash basis numbers. So between now and our audit, some of the numbers will change. But we'll start off with an update on sales and use tax. These are through November collections. They totaled $20.8 million, which is up 3.7% on the year. I did get some updated numbers on Friday, so I'm going to share those with you since we do have year-end numbers on sales and use tax. We're actually going to end the year up 3.25% for the year, which is positive. We've talked about inflation in the metro area, and that ended up being at 2.73%. So if we're doing better than inflation, we'll take that as a positive. We had forecast about a 2.7% increase over last year, so we kind of beat those projections as well. So positive things on sales tax. A couple of specific items in sales tax. Auto use was down 1.4%. It had been up quite a bit the last 2 years, so being down is kind of just more of a leveling off. It's not really a concern. Food tax was down 1%. That can fluctuate a little bit year over year, which it did. And then the marijuana tax was down 3% year over year. So a couple of the big components of what makes up the $20 million in sales tax right there. On page 10 of the more detailed report, we looked at the geographic codes. So the actual locations in the city were up 2.14%. So that's a little bit behind inflation in the area. Something that was supporting our 3.25% increase overall was the out-of-state, kind of out-of-city sales tax remitters. So the Netflix, the Amazons, the .coms, those were up 12% year over year. So just a little bit of detail behind some of the numbers that make up $23 million, our largest revenue in the city. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'd really like to watch the sales tax on marijuana over the next couple months really closely, because we've never had competition so close before, and now with Thornton having 4, and we've already seen a drop, and if we're going, we're gonna have to watch to make sure we don't get more of a drop.
Yeah, and we're definitely gonna keep track of that, and
thank you.
We'll see with the new tax that has started in January. We'll see those results February 20th when the first.
I'm more looking. I don't know. I don't think that will bother us much. The fact that there is business open over there, and we've never had to deal with competing. Basically, I mean, we have a couple that are head on.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. So in the general fund, our major operating fund, total revenues are at $25.2 million. That's up 5.5% year over year. You'll see the collection rate on the far right column of 92%. That's normal. We have another month of revenues to accrue before we kind of get to those targets in the budget. Expenditures in the general fund are at $22.9 million. I would call it $23 million. That's up 3.15% year over year. All of the spending rates compared to the budget are in line on personnel and all the major categories. And feel free to jump in and stop me if you guys have questions on anything, or I'll just keep going. In the Conservation Trust Fund, total revenues of $415,523 and expenditures of $315,801. Large capital projects in this fund drive the expenditures, and we're working on the Northwest Open Space as a large project in this fund, which is an ongoing project. On the Capital Projects Fund, there's more detail in the detailed packet at the back where we detail all the capital projects. But overall revenues are at just over $6 million with expenditures of $17 million. Nothing unusual in the Capital Projects Fund overall. And then in the Water Fund, total revenues of $11 million, total expenditures of just under $6 million. You'll see user charges and fees of $7.3 million. We'll accrue another $380,000. So we'll be just short on our projections for budget of $8 million when we wrap up the year. But overall, water usage is up just under 10%. So a portion of that is increased water consumption of about 5%. Coupled with the rate increase for 2018.
That's a yearly average percentage that it's up, you're saying?
Yeah,
for the year?
correct.
Kind of interesting. Well, I know, but water usage, so.
Yeah, water usage was up just under 5%.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great amount, but I just thought people would be conserving a little bit more, that's all.
Yeah, and then on the expenditure side, I believe last quarter this was brought up, the supplies and equipment line item being over budget slightly by $69,000. Really that's coupled with the purchase services being down quite a bit. There's factors that we either can in-house buy equipment and replace it ourselves, or we may need to hire somebody to come in and do that. So if you look over the years, sometimes those line items, when they're rolled up, purchase services versus supplies and equipment alternate depending on what kind of repairs and maintenance work we're doing. So next in the wastewater fund, user charges and fees are at $3.7 million. We have an accrual of $300,000 coming, so we'll be right in line with the budget projection. And then expenditures in the fund are at $3.6 million, fall in line with, again, with what we had planned for the budget. And then in the stormwater fund, total revenues of $418,000 with expenditures of $194,000. An accrual will be coming of about $30,000 to bump up that revenue number closer to the $465,000 budget that we had planned. And then the last fund we'll talk about is the sanitation fund, revenues of $1.8 million and expenditures of $1.5. An accrual for year end of $115,000 will be added to the 1.8, and so we'll get to that revenue number that we had projected of 1.9. Overall, if we just look at our general operating account, which is the general fund, revenues are up 5.4%. Sales and use tax, we know that this slide is outdated, 3.7% through November, 3.25% through December. Overall spending is in alignment with what we had planned for the budget. And then cash and investments, we're at $67 million at the end of December, and that's up from $58 million in 2017. So part of that is our plans to accumulate some cash for some major capital projects. So I am finished with my comments.
All right,
Is there
are
any
there
questions?
None. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Jason. All right, now we will move to consent agenda.
To approve.
Brenda, would you open the vote, please?
Vote is open.
Please, Charles.
close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, we move to public hearings this evening. I will open CB 1919 public hearing. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending several sections of Chapters 7, 9, and 14 of the Northglenn Municipal Code concerning parking, nuisances, and animals.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against CB 1919 at this time? Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing for CB 1919 and open the public hearing for CB 1920. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance, A, adopting the Unified Development Ordinance as a new Chapter 11 of the Northglenn Municipal Code, B, repealing the previous version of Chapter 11, C, further repealing Chapters 12 and 21 of the Northglenn Municipal Code, D, rezoning property within the city, and E, adopting the City of Northglenn zoning map dated February 2019 in conformance therewith.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against CB 1920? Okay, seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing for CB 1920, and we will move to ordinances second reading. We will first go back to CB 1919, nuisance and animal control regulations update and cleanup. Is there a motion? Move to approve. Second. Are we going to have a presentation tonight, or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dodge. Tom Carlson and Brooke Svoboda are both here this evening, and I believe Brooke was going to provide some brief comments.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll keep my remarks brief too. If there are any questions regarding the changes, as reflected in the staff report, this is mostly a cleanup from the adoption that we did about 18 months ago. We've identified a few things that needed further refinement strategically to avoid sort of the gaming of the code. And we also identified a few things that were inadvertently omitted that were not intended to be, that we've added back in. But if you have specific questions on anything, either myself or Tom are here tonight to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Brooke this evening? Seeing none? Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CB 1919 on second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. And then we will move to the second reading of CB 1920, the Unified Development Ordinance and Zoning District map. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. Eric Enzi, our senior planner, is here this evening to provide a summary of this item, and I'd just like to extend my thanks to him and the other staff members that are here this evening on this effort. This is a huge milestone for the city to hit in terms of updating our land use code after 40 plus years. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. This is a pretty big day here, I think, for you all and for the community in general. Staff is presenting the final adoption draft of the Unified Development Ordinance on second reading and at public hearing for formal adoption. Concurrently with the adoption of the UDO, staff is also presenting the zoning district map, which is required because the UDO is establishing a new set of zoning districts. The staff report and agenda provided to you this evening are added to the record, as well as the presentation provided from Clarion Associates that you saw at the study session a couple weeks ago. Actually, about a month ago now. The version being presented to you this evening, as you recall, we provided an errata sheet at the last meeting. All those changes, all those modifications have been incorporated into the document you are considering this evening. As you're aware, staff has been working with Clarion Associates, our consultant team, for a couple of years now on this particular project. Basically, the Unified Development Ordinance is an update and a combination of the city's zoning ordinance, sign code, and subdivision regulations into one single, kind of more user-friendly document for the community and for the business community as well. Before we get on any further onto this, I did want to clear up a couple of housekeeping items here for informational purposes. First of all, the UDO was presented to the Planning Commission at their public hearing at the January 15th meeting. The Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the UDO to you this evening. The City Code requires that amendments of the Unified Development Ordinance or the zoning ordinance come forward via a public hearing to gather input, if any, from the public on this particular project. First reading held on January 28th, 2019, scheduled this public hearing date for tonight's meeting. Additionally, staff did notice this council meeting in multiple places, including City Hall, the city's website, the Connection newsletter, and also a notice was sent to all people who receive utility bills. So there was a flyer in all of those utility bills notifying of this public hearing and of the changes to their property. Since the time this notice was sent out, staff has received a number of phone calls from residents in the community. I would probably say between 20 and 30 calls. Most of those calls were informational in terms of nature, but there were 3 that we thought we would point out to the council this evening. In terms of, if you remember, we talked about a targeted mailing that we sent out to 7 property owners in the community that were going to be rezoned, or their new zoning designation was going to be mixed neighborhood. So these were existing houses that have been converted into businesses, for instance, is kind of a general idea of who those were. We did receive a few phone calls from most of them, discussed what the proposed changes were, and most of them were comfortable with it. We did receive a call from the property owner at 10791 Washington Street, which is just at the corner of 108th and Washington next to the Walmart. So it was a house converted into a chiropractic office. Initially, I think the property owner had a few concerns. We did go through what the intent of the mixed neighborhood zone district was, as well as a discussion, and we did have a couple discussions with him too, but basically what the difference was in terms of his uses now and his proposed uses. And indeed, we think that he's actually getting more uses associated with his property with the new mixed-use district, because he can now do residential as well as basically all the other uses that were allowed on his property under his current zoning. So we haven't heard anything back from him. We did offer to sit down and meet if he had any other concerns, but we hadn't heard back from him. Another property owner is one of the industrial district property owners expressed some concern about the regulations in the code for outdoor storage. We did, as staff, parlay to that individual that really there's no changes proposed in what was in the existing code as what is in the current code for outdoor storage. We basically brought over all those requirements, so there were no changes. So with that being said, we haven't heard anything from that person to this point as well. And then finally, we did hear from somebody about artificial turf in residential, and just let that property owner know as well that artificial turf is permitted, provided it's a permeable surface. Additionally, staff has included in your staff report a list of public meetings that were held throughout this 2-year process, as well as written comments that we had received from the public, of which we did attempt to address all of the comments that we received from the public. In summary, staff is recommending City Council approve Council Bill 1920, adopting the UDO and the zoning district map. Additionally, you'll see under Section 15 of tonight's agenda, there are 2 other items associated with the adoption of the UDO, which one is a resolution adopting the administrative manual, which is basically the application forms and submittal requirements for all the different development applications. And secondly, is a resolution establishing fees for all the development application, development review types in the UDO. These were introduced to you at a study session on January 28th. That doesn't conclude staff's presentation. Myself, Alan, the planning team, as well as our consultant team from Clarion Associates is here to answer any questions that you may have, last questions, or if there's any comments and questions from the public as well. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Eric. Are there questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to miss you.
but I bet you're not going to miss out. Oh, I know that. Anyhow, thank you for everything you did and how you kept everything so streamlined and everybody focused on what needed to be done with it. And I really appreciate that. I did not find it exciting.
You made it exciting. I think it takes a special brain to think of zoning ordinances being an exciting thing, so.
Well, you have a special brain.
And I also want to thank you for all your hard work. I know you went through this not only with the council, but also with the planning commission many times. And I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. I also want to take a moment to thank staff, the Planning Commission, the consultants who are with us tonight, and the residents who engaged throughout this long process and helped us develop this new code. I think, as we heard earlier, it's a long time coming and desperately needed, and I'm excited to vote yes about this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I think it's so much more user-friendly, and my hope that as residents and individuals who are looking at doing a project in Northglenn come to our city, that they're able to know what our values are right up front, and they're able to get the information that they need right up front. And then a couple other things I want to highlight, in addition to obviously raising the bar on our development standards, I think it does a couple of really cool other things that we're not elevating as highly. One, allowing residents to sell produce that they've grown in their own backyards, I think is pretty cool. Also prioritizing water conservation and allowing accessory dwelling units, I think is a pretty bold and progressive step forward. So I'm excited to see Northglenn take these steps and really feel strongly that this document is going to be a strong foundation for the future of our city. So thank you so much for all of your work.
Marcy?
Just a couple other people to thank as well. We had a lot of stakeholders that came at the beginning and engaged with us, developers who looked into this, and then the task force that also put a lot of time into this as well. So thank you to all of them. And then throughout the conversations, we've talked about like administrative approvals and kind of looking at what things we need to track. And is there a system that might come back to the council, say 6 months after it's out there, just so that we can have some kind of check-in as to what we might have to reevaluate?
Absolutely. Great question. The one thing to keep in the back of all of our minds here is this is a new document. It's a big document. There were some changes in here that we need to track. So similar to the errata sheet that you saw at the last meeting, staff will be creating a new errata sheet, basically, that's going to outline discussion topics, things that don't work, things that we may have left out, all of those items for discussion. Our goal is within the first 6 months to kind of look at that and see how big that list is and whether that should be brought back. But yes, between the first 6 months to a year, we anticipate bringing discussion back with both the Planning Commission with a recommendation and then ultimately to City Council for any further discussion we need to have on it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I would echo what everybody said. Jenny took my entire speech right out of my mouth, so that was good. But I would just say that, honestly, after 40 years, to bring this document to life the way that you guys did, to address some of the things that Jenny said, and ADUs was really important, and I'm so glad that we addressed that. You've just brought our document to life and very current. So I thank you for all the work and all the entities that everybody already thanked. I mean, you guys really did the heavy lifting, so thank you so much. And I am proud that we are at this point today, so thanks. All right.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
Madam Mayor, we need a motion first.
I'm sorry, we didn't get a motion.
Move to second.
Now would you open the vote?
Now
Please
the vote is
vote.
open. I'll close that vote, and CB 1920 on second reading passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move to ordinances first reading with CB 1921. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 18, Article 3 of the Northglenn Municipal Code concerning pawnbroker regulations.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Joanna Small, our city clerk, has been very instrumental in bringing this item forward, so I will turn it over to her to provide you with a staff summary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the proposed ordinance that's before you will do three things. It will allow pawnbroker businesses to be open on Sundays and holidays, and it will revise language regarding the fee that a pawnbroker can charge a person to retrieve a pawned item so that the city's code is consistent with state law. If you'll remember, staff presented a request from a lobbyist that represents a local pawnbroker business at the study session on January 28th, and their request was to allow pawnbrokers to be open on Sundays. At that time, staff also requested council to consider deleting the restriction related to holidays, to also allow pawnbroker businesses to be open on holidays as well. We've provided some additional information in the table in the staff memo that shows other municipalities' regulations concerning operation on Sundays, holidays, and their hours of operation. And we believe the city's hours of operation fall in line with those allowed in other municipalities. It also provides the current language of what we refer to as the fixed price. And you'll see that the additional amounts that are currently included in the city's code make the definition of fixed price more restrictive than state law. So the new language will establish a fee that is the same as the state's definition. If CB 1921 is approved on first reading, the city's 3 pawnbroker businesses will be notified and invited to attend the public hearing so that they can provide input as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for Joanna? None. Thank you, Joanna, for all the work that you did on that. Would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I will close that vote, and CB 1921 on first reading passes unanimously. And I would like to state for the record that the public hearing on CB 1921 will be held on February 25th, 2019, here in City Hall Council Chambers.
Thank you. All right, we will move to resolutions, the first being CR 12. Joanna, would you read the title, please?
A resolution adopting the administrative manual for the Unified Development Ordinance.
Second. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. As mentioned earlier with the public hearing on the UDO, this item and the next item follows the adoption of the UDO. And with us tonight, Brooke Sabota and Eric Enzi are here to answer any questions related to the administrative manual aspect of what we're asking to be adopted.
All right. Are there any questions from council? All right, seeing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 12 passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we move to CR 13. Joanna, please.
A resolution establishing application fees for land use submittals pursuant to the Unified Development Ordinance.
Second. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. This item, again, is connected with the adoption of the UDO, specifically focused on the fees that we charge, and Eric and Brooke are here and can answer any specific questions if you have any related to the methodology of how these proposed fees were developed.
Thank you. Questions on the development fee schedule? Okay. Seeing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 13 passes unanimously.
Thank you, and we will move to CR 15. Joanna?
A resolution authorizing and approving the City of Northglenn's participation in the Metro Mortgage Assistance Plus program and authorizing the execution of the delegation and participation agreement and other documents in connection therewith.
Move to approve. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I'd like to thank Jason Loveland, our finance director, who's here, that can answer more specific questions, but he was able to get this packaged pretty quickly in order to bring it to you tonight for your consideration. If council decides to approve this program, we will take the next steps in making sure that information is put on our website, pushed out on social media, and our various other communication channels to promote the program, again, if approved tonight. And Jason's here if you have any specific questions from what's outlined in the memo.
Thank you. Further questions? All right, seeing none, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close that vote, and CR 15 passes unanimously.
Thank you, Jason and Heather, for moving that forward so quickly. I appreciate that. All right, we will move to our discussion items this evening and begin with the Northglenn Justice Center project budget update. Ken.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This will be our last update on the Justice Center as far as the project. So we started the project for construction in March of 2017, and we had our team of us, the city, Hafer-Wasaki, and FCI. The total project cost initially was $24,290,895. The actual cost after everything is $23,683,804 for a remaining balance of $607,091. We gave this a substantial completion on August 10th. We had the groundbreaking successfully on September 11th. The warranty period began on August 11th, and we'll continue to work through warranty issues. They're doing a couple things now. Lessons we learned in this project, this was our second consecutive successful CMAR project. Both of those projects, the Headworks and the Justice Center now, and as we move into the Civic Center, have shown to be successful when we get the contractor on board early, and we continue to learn and work with the contractors and the architects as we do the design, which saves us money, obviously, in the long run. So very successful on both of these projects. I'd like to thank the council who approved this, the contractors who worked on it, the chief, David Willett, Nate Haasses, who was our project manager, and everyone else associated with the project.
Are there questions or comments for Kent? Julie?
I have a question, but it's actually for Heather. So with this being our second successful project, how has this been communicated to the residents? Has it been in like connection or anything, talking about how, successful this project was? I just want to make sure that everyone, our community understands that, our staff has done a great job at making sure that we're doing the best job we can in creating these.
Good question. We have not yet communicated the end result of where we landed with our final budget number in connections. It's a great suggestion. I can work with Kim and figure out what that looks like for the next connection. Part of why we haven't done anything yet is I felt it was important to bring this item to you all first and do the debrief and report out prior to getting that out into the community. On the Headworks project, I'm not sure, Kent, do you know off the top of your head if the city did anything specific to communicating that?
We did
okay.
Not to my knowledge.
With the Justice Center and moving forward, I think there will be an emphasis in terms of making sure we communicate with residents, not only the value of the service or the facility being provided, but how we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everybody down to the chief for coming in under budget.
Yes.
That was, we pounded you guys, we beat you up, and you did it, and I'm so proud of you guys. I mean, it's awesome. I just really, really appreciate it. And I think that is really something we need to drive home, Heather, is that we came in under our, what we thought would be our budget. And we need to brag on these people because they did a phenomenal job with several dollar amounts.
Yeah.
Not to mention myself. Thank you, Chief, for all your excellent work and everything that you put into it. To the judge who also helped us out so much. And then the company that helped build it and gave us our shovels and all that good stuff. Just an excellent project. And I always wondered what would be my mark, Joe has, my ex-husband, not my ex-husband, my husband. He bought the wrong wheat thins yesterday, so I hope he knows that. But Joe,
Valentine's Day week.
Joe has certain developments that we drive around in the city, and I am so proud of him because I know that he had something to do with that. He and Marcy and Carol and Joyce, I mean, they really did that. Now I can look at the Justice Center and I can be proud that I participated in that from the beginning to the end, and it was such a pleasure to work with you guys. Very, very proud of you.
And we were really concerned about the budget, so it's a big deal that you all worked really hard, and honestly, that building is amazing for this budget. I even still look at that number and that building. You guys did an incredible job, so thank you all. Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Joe Brown, I'm not divorcing.
On Valentine's Day week.
You're watching.
I was gonna, no, they.
Today, anyway.
Oh, no.
And he's staying there because we are moving to the temporary traffic calming project update.
Thank you again. So this will be our update on our temporary traffic calming devices that we installed at 112th and Livingston, Clyde Court, and Melody. A lot of information is provided in your packet. I'll kind of just go through some of the highlights for each intersection. So at 112th Place, we installed 3 speed humps. And after we did the pre-data collection before the speed humps, and we did the data collection after the speed humps. Now, mind you, these are just, snapshots of, 5 days at a time, but the data is telling. So on 112th Place, we see a reduction in speeders, basically, people who are traveling over 28 miles an hour of 47%, and a reduction in the traffic volume on that road of 70%. On Claude, we did very similar. We installed 4 speed humps and 2 solar radar signs, and the reduction in the speeding vehicles is 54%, and the volume change in volume is about 44% in volume change. Now in 2020 or in 2019, this year, we received the CDBG fund, so we'll be taking Claude, and the speed humps will remain because at the community meetings, that's what the residents wanted. So we'll be striping that area in accordance with the Connect Northglenn plan, which will be bike lanes and narrowing the lane and showing a parking lane on one side. So that should improve. But the speed humps will remain in that area, and we'll continue to monitor that area if we need to increase or put another additional speed hump in there. And eventually, what we'd like to do is budget for that in 2020 and make those permanent if they're effective, if they continue to be effective. That way we can use those somewhere else. Any questions on 112th Place or Claude at this point? Yes.
Okay. 2 things. One, neither one of them are really a question, but I guess one of them is. I saw, when I was coming home the other day, there was a City of Northglenn staff out there working on a couple of the speed humps. And I'm wondering, was that somebody vandalizing them, or was that just normal wear and tear?
We had to get them down really quick. So what we did, we didn't put all the bolts in there. There was like hundreds of bolts inside of these things. And we had one on Melody that was hit a few weeks back with a plow, not our plow, but a plow driver. And we had to kind of redo some of the area and make sure. So when they're out there, what they're doing, the middle mats are kind of just bolted down with a couple, and we continue to monitor those on a weekly basis to see if the frost is heaving those up or anything like that. And so he could have noticed something in the area, and he could have been putting an additional bolt in there just to make sure it's affixed down.
Okay, and then my other one is really directed, I think, to you, Heather. Although we're seeing a reduction, I mean, the speed is phenomenal. I still love sitting down there watching them because they are slowing down. But my concern remains with the fact that the traffic's diverting onto Irma. So Irma is getting out of control. So can we make sure we're addressing that in our next round, if at all possible?
Kent and I will take that feedback, and what we'll do is tonight's discussion isn't intended so much as to figure out what the next streets are, but we'll be bringing back the CIP. We'll be bringing the CIP to you as we develop it for 2020. And so I think that'll be a great opportunity to talk about what the priorities are.
I'll speak for the residents because I've gotten a lot of compliments on them. Thank you so much for getting them up as fast as they got up. There was that big lag in the middle, but I've had nothing but compliments on them. I've had no complaints at all.
Yeah, and we haven't received any in engineering or traffic, to my knowledge of. I really thought, and I guess just personally, I thought we would have residents call and say the other way that they didn't like them, but to my surprise and pleasantly surprised, we have had no adverse effects from having those down. So it's been a real positive thing for the city and slowed down traffic, and the speeding and stuff and the calls for those areas have, basically ceased.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. I'll continue with Livingston. Livingston is very similar to 112th Place. We put down 3 speed humps in the area. There's a reduction of speeders in that area of 83% and a reduction in the volume of 25%. So that one's huge. And I think those are just a little more, it's a little more confined area. So the speed humps are a little bit more tightly placed. So it works even, you can kind of see the effectiveness of when they're spaced a little bit closer together. The last one is Melody, and this is kind of our big one. We placed the 4 down there on Melody and the radar signs. So there's kind of large gaps, and we knew that going in. But we've still seen a reduction in speeders of 38% and a reduction in volume of 67% in those areas. So with 2019, our plan is to complete that full mill and overlay on Melody. And as we had our community meetings on Melody, the residents wanted the striping plan, which was in accordance with Connect Northglenn. So once we mill and overlay the entire section, then we'll be putting in the new striping, which will reduce that section from 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction with an auxiliary lane and then parking and bikes on both sides. Our initial plan is to not put the speed humps in those areas because, again, the reduction, we'd like to monitor and see what the reduction in speed is just based on the striping. We think that may possibly take care of some of the issues, but we will continue to monitor that area. We'll have the additional speed humps if necessary and put together a plan to bring forward if necessary, if we want them back down.
We can put them on our bumper.
I've also included in the packet our traffic calming, and you can kind of see the trend. When we started the traffic calming policy and, we were having study sessions and the like, we were getting a lot of calls. And so we were putting out the speed radar trailers, doing speed studies and, really being active in that role. Since we've kind of implemented the policy and kind of made around the initial go of it, in 2018, we saw a real reduction. And so far in 2019, we've had a couple, but we kind of need to re-implement some of those basic traffic calming measures and make sure that those speed radar trailers are out and present, and we're doing what we need to do to help reduce the speeding.
So I have a question. I'm curious on Melody Drive, in your opinion, do you think that the striping and the narrowing is going to have what sort of impact do you anticipate that that's going to have? Because even putting down speed bumps, it's reducing the average speed by only 2 miles per hour, which is it's not to 25, right, which is supposed to be the legal speed limit. So in your experience, do you think that that's going to make a difference? Are there other things that we should be looking at?
Yeah, the solar radar signs will remain up. We won't remove those. I really believe that, if it's going to be 2 lane, it's 2 lanes now, as we know. And so you get the people who want to, treat it like a freeway, and they want to pass each other and get around, and it's very wide. So confining those areas, and studies have shown that you confine those areas, and even in your own daily travels. When you go, you can tell where a lane is 13 feet wide, and you can tell when you get into a city such as Denver or Boulder, where they've reduced that lane down to 11 miles an hour. And it really kind of boxes you in, so to say, and you do slow down. So it'll still be a wide open area, but we're hoping that the striping can do some speed reduction. And so, I'd like to take a look and see what it does first before we just put down the speed humps again. And if we do put down the speed humps again, I'd like to put them down, with the proper spacing so we can really just cut it at the neck and be done with Melody.
So a follow-up on that, do you have an anticipated date as far as when that mill and overlay will happen?
We don't. We're trying to work with Excel right now because there's been a couple gas leaks on Excel, on Melody. So the gas line is very old, and they're doing emergency repairs on that. So we have calls into Excel and Preston to see what that work coordinated is. We want to make sure that they go in, and if they're going to replace that entire gas line, we want that entire gas line replaced prior to us going in and doing the mill and overlay. We have not yet put out the bid. We're going to do the residential streets and the Melody all in one package, so we get a good benefit of cost. I would hope that the construction would begin sometime around July if everything works out.
Okay, that's great. And then I'm just curious, as far as the volume, 1,000 less vehicles a day going down Melody Drive. Are we making the assumption that those are going out to Huron? Do you think that they're having an impact on neighboring streets?
Yeah, and as I kind of began, that's a snapshot in time. So, even doing speed studies in the late fall and winter, you're not going to get real good data. So, we got them down by, Christmas or whatever, and we kind of immediately put down the radar. And so it could just be a function of the week that we did. I think there will be a reduction of volume, and they will take those higher collector streets, but is it 1,000 a day? Probably not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know how the before speed was figured out?
Same way. We did it both the same way. We have the tubes, and so you'll drive around and you see the tubular counters on the thing, and you drive over it. It makes the impact. It records your speed based on your axle, and so that's how it's tracked. And so we did the pre and the post both the same.
And how long did that go? I'm just curious.
Sometimes we go for 3 days, sometimes we go for 5. I think in these areas they were mostly that 4 to 5 day range.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Yes, Kemp, two things. Will the warning signs remain even after the striping goes down?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. And the other question is, XL was in the neighborhood last week, and they tore up a section of it, and I noticed we had cones around it today. Is there a timetable to either reconstruct that or pull it out?
Yeah, as I mentioned, Excel, they're having some leaks in that area, in that pipeline. So I've got a call into Preston. He didn't return my call today or my email. So working diligently to find out what that schedule is, because we certainly, promised our residents that we were going to get Melody done. But, if we got to replace a gas line, that kind of, that's very important. But we want to press them because, again, when we had our construction meeting with Excel Energy earlier in the spring, they didn't mention this project. So it's something emergency-wise that's come up for them that may not have been on their radar, but we want to make sure that they get all their work done before we go in there and black it.
Well, on the positive side, where they tore up the speed bump, it's on the parking, so it really isn't affecting the traffic lanes. But it's still got 7 or 8 cones around it. But
yeah, I'll have our staff go out there and check tomorrow and see if we can get that back down.
Any other comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess just a clarifying question for me. So on Melody Drive, we have the temporary speed bumps currently, right? Are they temporary?
They're temporary everywhere.
Oh, they're temporary everywhere. Okay. Yep. And so if we were, after you guys go back and you fix the road and redo everything in July or whenever your timetable is, and speed bumps are needed, would you use the temporary ones again, or would you want to have permanent ones if you needed to put them back?
On Melody specifically, again, I think it would be that as Heather mentioned or alluded to, the CIP project, what we'd want to do and where we're going with our traffic calming. I think, Heather and I have discussed, maybe bringing back and softening the traffic calming policy, where we can have the ability to put down some speed humps in some other areas instead of just kind of the traffic calming policy is either all or none. So we want to bring that back and massage that and have a discussion about those things. But ideally, if we're going to leave them in an area, the permanent ones would be the way to go. But we would want to either have our in-house crews, do that in a area like a Livingston or 112th before we put them on a higher volume road like that.
And the reason why I just ask is because I just want to make sure that we're planning for the possibility that we might need to put speed bumps back onto Melody. I actually think they make a huge difference in controlling the speed through there. And I'm definitely for trying the striping and seeing how it works, but I want to make sure that we're planning ahead and we have the funds available if we do need to put speed bumps back in this area.
Yep,
and which ones you think, either temporary or permanent or whatever, but let's just make sure we have the money.
Right, and with that section of Melody, with it being 4 lanes now, and we're going to reduce it to 1, we would have kind of the mix match. We may have to just buy a few more pieces to make a few more speed humps if necessary. So, again, that's our idea is the $171,000 that we've already spent on the temporary traffic calming measures, that as we make these things permanent, then we still have these things for reuse in those other areas that we can monitor the traffic areas.
Anyone else?
Mayor Dodge?
Yes.
I just wanted to add one component that's related yet separate. On the February 25th meeting, Chief May is going to come in under a discussion item and talk about debrief on traffic enforcement. So if you recall, back in the fall, we mentioned that he was going to be offering voluntary overtime to officers to do traffic enforcement in school zone areas. Melody was included in that. So we'll have more of a discussion about traffic enforcement on February 25th because we can do what we can do with physical roadway modifications, temporary speed humps, but the traffic enforcement piece is a related component. So that discussion will be forthcoming.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing that. Kent, I just want to thank you for implementing all these traffic calming projects in the neighborhoods where the concerns were raised. And I do think, Heather, that this is really, this is interesting information, and I think it's effective. So this would be good to put on the website also.
Okay. Website, yep.
Because, we were asked by the residents to do it, and we did it, and I think it's showing some really good outcomes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is that it? All right. Thanks, Kent.
Yep.
And then our last discussion item this evening is the Q4 2018 work plan update with Heather.
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. Let's see here. Okay, so this evening we are going to walk through the year in review for 2018, known as Q4 work plan. So as I have noted here, I presented the Q3 work plan update to Council on January 7th. Of this year, and so the Q4 work plan consists of activities through December 31st of 2018. For the benefit of the residents watching at home, the work plan purpose consists of alignment of City Council strategic vision, reflection of resource allocation in our annual city budget. It's a way to track major projects, operational initiatives, as well as operational data. It's a data collection tool that we currently use on a quarterly basis and an annual basis. However, part of my ask when I last presented to council was to shift that to a mid-year update and then an annual update, which council supported, so thank you for that. And then overall demonstration of the value of city services and programs that we offer to our community. The City Council strategic goals, there are 6 of them, include upgraded city infrastructure and facilities, fiscally responsible city government, strong competitive businesses, community governance with strategic partnerships, clean and beautiful city, and livable neighborhoods and homes. And we use these strategic goals as a framework for presenting the data that I'll share moving forward. We do have several strategic objectives. I won't go through all of these. They're a little bit more in-depth, but certainly several of them will be highlighted throughout the work plan update. Several more. So In terms of kicking off strategic planning for 2020, I have selected Heather Bergman as the City Council facilitator for our strategic planning sessions. And as I shared with Council in an email about a week ago, I've broken these sessions into 3 work sessions rather than a Friday, all-day Saturday session, trying to give you your weekend time. So these sessions are scheduled for March 11th and April 1st, and that's not a joke, as well as May 6th. So in terms of the city being a fiscally responsible government, beyond what you've heard tonight in the finance report, the 2019 city budget was adopted in October of 2018. The 2018 year-end report presented to council this evening. Jason provided some of the highlights in terms of where we're at expenditure-wise, where we're at revenue-wise, and certainly when the comprehensive annual financial report from our audit comes back, you'll have a bigger picture snapshot of how we ended the year and how we're doing in terms of meeting our financial policies and goals for the year. The city clerk's office certified the city's mill levy of 11.597 mills by resolution 18-127 to Adams County and Weld County. Just as a reminder for the public at home, we have our wastewater treatment plant in an area called Section 36, which is in Weld County, and so that's why we certify mill levy in 2 different counties, not just Adams. In terms of government policy, we had an election on November 6th, 2018. It was a special election that was coordinated with Adams and Weld counties. The total cost was $14,843, or as Joanna has provided this information, 74 cents per eligible voter. Continuing with government policy, and as you approved tonight, we've made great headway with the Unified Development Ordinance. So I won't go through all of these items, but this is really just to capture the snapshot of the multiple outreach that was conducted as part of this plan effort, and then the work done in terms of developing the administrative manual and the fee schedule, which came at the latter portion of the UDO project. We are continuing work on the Excel franchise agreement. This current agreement that we have with Excel expires on August 17th of 2019. We have a meeting with Excel. We've provided them with initial comments on the draft franchise agreement that they submitted to the city, and we'll be meeting them in a couple weeks to really discuss what our desired changes are and how they can meet those requested changes, and that's really where negotiations begin. In terms of Croak Reservoir, Council adopted a special ordinance after having a study session on October 1st, and that special ordinance, I believe, was adopted in October. That created a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And through a couple emails that I sent to council within the last week, we do have 10 applicants, potentially an 11th applicant, who will be submitting his application to be part of the subcommittee. And those applicants will be coming before the Parks Recreation Advisory Board this Thursday evening. Is that correct, Amanda? Yes. Valentine's Day, but they may come out and join us at the Parks Board meeting, and if not, we'll invite them to come to the next Parks Board meeting. So we did have a glitch with our website, as I mentioned, to where initially when I gave you an update on this, we had 0 applications, but that glitch got figured out. We had 10 applications, so the online process worked really well. Let's see, in terms of branding and logo implementation, our focus in 2019 includes signage, and I'll be meeting with staff. I set up a meeting with Kent, Debbie Tuttle, Kim Rain in another week to sit down and really talk about what signage looks like. I know we have funding in the budget in 2019 to update the logo that is currently, say, on 104th bridge with the new logo, I want to take a step back and really take a comprehensive look at what are we doing, what does our existing signage throughout the city look like, and then bring that back to council for further discussion. So that'll be coming back to you. As I mentioned, Kim and her staff are in the process of working on the development of a marketing plan, which includes a social media component, which will also be coming back to council within Q1. Northwest Open Space construction is moving forward. Construction began in the fall, and so far things are on schedule to be completed in the late spring. Same update in terms of Kiwanis outdoor pool bath house and replacement of the splash pad. If you've driven by this facility, you have noticed a visible change of the facility not being there in the last couple of weeks. So again, on schedule, and construction is expected to be completed in the spring. Ralston House, we recently joined our other local communities in celebrating the opening of the Ralston House facility here in Northglenn. That public opening was held on January 31st. The warranty period has begun, and really the last remaining thing to do from a construction perspective is to get the landscaping in the ground once it's an appropriate time this spring to do that. Justice Center West Park, there's no new update on this project other than at the tail end of last year, Amanda brought forward two asks, resolutions of support to submit this project to GOCO and ADCO for planning grant requests, and so we're just waiting to hear back on whether or not we'll be recipients of those grant requests. On the Civic Campus, we are moving forward with phase 1. Very excited about that. Making progress on selecting a general contractor. You heard a report out, you will hear a report out of Susan Stanton's P3 report this evening. And council awarded the architectural design to BRS in the contract amount of $3.6 million back in the fall. So we're still targeting a breaking ground date of late September, early fall of this year, and so far things are on target for that. For the February 25th council meeting, I have the City Hall space assessment on that agenda. This has been a bit delayed because my focus has shifted in multiple places, and this is something that I need to get pulled together. So this will be bringing that discussion to council and asking for input on what we want to do with certain plans proposed for utilization of space down here, as well as potentially shifting workspaces up on the main floor of City Hall. In terms of Carl's Farm, that land use application will be coming forward to City Council for first reading in March, and then second reading public hearing will likely take place in the first part of April. And let's see here. We just provided through Kent's report an update on the temporary traffic calming projects, so I won't go into too much detail there. In terms of the South Huron Street fence, the update, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, are we still waiting for one easement? Darn it. So we're waiting for one easement. Staff is come up with an alternate plan in terms of if we don't get that easement, they're still working on it. Ideally, we get the easement and we can put the placement of the fence where it should really go, but stay tuned on that. We'll provide you an update when we have it. And really, once we have that easement, then we can begin construction. So Amanda will do her best in terms of gauging when we know we're absolutely not going to get the easement and where we need to do a workaround. 50th anniversary celebration planning. We have kicked off the year of celebration. We did that with the Mingle with the Mayor event. here in January of 2019. Calendars were distributed, and we've got a fun year of events planned. So late last year, we had the presentation of the logo and seal to council, and you provided support on both of those items as well as the overall plan for festivities. A point in time survey was held on January 29th in terms of what's happened on the subject of homelessness. Really, there's no other update beyond this. So once we get into further into the year, we'll provide more of an update in terms of opportunities to partner with Adams County and other opportunities that we can take advantage of. One of the things that I thought I'd do is report out on, excuse me, childcare at city meetings. This was a request from council for us in terms of, we promoted the option of providing childcare at 3 city meetings back in the fall. That started with the Ward 4 meeting on September 18th, the Save a Lot community meeting on October 25th, and then the Ward 1 meeting on November 17th. You can see where I've broken down the number of children and the approximate staff cost. From the discussion that Amanda and I have had at this point, it's probably too early to tell, and we need to continue to promote and advertise this as an option if you choose that for your respective ward meetings, and for certainly we'll continue to do it for community meetings, but that's where we're at right now with childcare at city meetings. While this isn't directly related to the work plan, I was really struck in the latter part of the year by the immense community spirit that we have here in Northglenn, and the generosity and how this community comes together in helping others in need, and really making sure that others experience a more positive holiday season, often one that many of us can take for granted given what we have. And so the city, I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that the city's clerk's office leveraged passport photo services for participation in their Sock It To 'Em sock campaign. And then donations were accepted from passport customers. A donation of socks equaled a free passport photo, and that included employees and the public. So 322 pairs of new socks were collected and provided to individuals in the point in time survey event. Additional activities that took place included city employees filling 15 poly carts with food and 12 with warm clothing and toys for Northglenn families in need. And that included schools, businesses, and churches all coming together to provide this. Many of the new toys were donated to Gethsemane Lutheran School for their Christmas Crusade program sponsored by the police department. Over 450 families received food, gift card, clothing, and toys through our partnership with Immaculate Heart of Mary Catholic Church. And then we also shared food with Crossroads, Northglenn Christian, Good Shepherd Church, food banks in Northglenn. We also provided 402 bikes to families through the Northglenn Bike Share Program. So again, I was really inspired by the generosity that I got to firsthand experience last year, being my first year here at Northglenn, and thought that that was really notable to highlight this evening. Again, not related to the work plan, but I thought I'd note this. Employee training development, we offered 6 opportunities last year. I won't read them to you, but a variety of topics. And then most notable are employee years of service. we have tremendous longevity here in our organization. And so I've broken down the years of service here. For your information, you can see 40 years of service, 35, 30, and we have quite a diversity in terms of newer employees coming into the organization. So a lot to be proud of in terms of our overall employee makeup. On the organizational development initiative front, we have work underway on the council appointee evaluation program. There's a subcommittee that has met a few times, and working with Joe Mattoon on that project. I pushed out an employee engagement survey in early December, and we received 71%, a 71% response rate, which is excellent for an employee engagement survey. My plan is to bring those survey results to City Council in Q1. My first step is to, excuse me, meet with my leadership team and do a debrief on the survey results, and then figure out our game plan for how we're going to move forward. So in my mind, doing nothing in terms of responding to survey results is not an option. We got a lot of great data, both positive and negative. I think employees really appreciated the opportunity to have a voice and give their opinion. So from what I can tell with that level of engagement, this is something certainly that we'll want to continue in the future. Not necessarily every year, but based on that plan that we put together of how we're going to address some of the areas we need to address, it'll probably look like a every 3 to 5 year survey that we do with employees. So now we get into the performance measurement section of this presentation, and I won't go through all the rows. I'll try to just point out some highlights. You'll see that I updated the Q4 column and then the year-to-date total. I also went through and, in some of these areas we have no target or we have a target. So you can see how we compare year over year. We're doing well. I mean, some of this in particular, when you're talking about snow and ice removal and that sort of thing, can be very situationally focused depending on the storm and frequency of storms, so forth. Again, doing pretty well here. In terms of like catch basins cleaned, our year-to-date total is 93. Our goal was 80. So, being able to be more proactive about certain activities is important. Our fleet readiness goal was 95%, and we came in at 98%, which was good. I found it interesting in terms of tons of recycling materials. That's an interesting data point to look at. We do a great job with playground repairs, playground inspections. Had a little bit more vandalism this year. Certainly I can lean on Amanda to offer any insight on that if you're curious about that. See, in terms of the city clerk's office, again, we added this new data information in the last Q3 report. So we had a total of 106 QORA requests this year, which were quite a few. Passport applications, the clerk's office really rocks with that service, which I think is an important service that the community appreciates. And you can see the revenue that's generated there on an annual basis, approximately $113,000. That's no insignificant number there. And in terms of legislative items, so these are ordinances and resolutions processed, 191. So Mayor and City Council, you were very busy in 2018. Speaking more specifically to Parks, Recreation, and Culture, here's some stats related to our senior center, use of the facility. One of the things that always jumps out at me is when you look at the senior volunteer hours. Our year-to-date total is approximately 1,200. We have such an awesome senior program here in the city of Northglenn, and we'll continue to move forward with that. A couple things that I added that weren't in the Q3 report, but were on a tracking sheet that I have that I thought might be of interest is the financial requests that we receive compared to the financial assistant requests actually utilized. So that's when an individual requests financial assistance to participate in one of our programs. And so we do get quite a few requests. As you all know, we have an awesome theater program as well. And so you can see our theater booking days, 280 compared to our goal of 250 for 2018. And the number of theater visits is up. You know, we had a goal of 30,000 and we're at 35,517. So a lot to be proud of there. In terms of information technology, we continue to have increased usage on the website, and that really goes back to Councilmember Mollica, your earlier comment about continuing to promote what we're doing and encouraging our residents to, really utilize the communication channel that they feel most comfortable with. So we see an increase in, it's not quite as much of an increase in mobile visitors as years pass, so we'll continue to work on that overall, but definitely increase in page views. And then when you look at the amount of email that we generate as an organization, it's pretty significant. And the spam blocked is measured because, that's really thinking about how we protect our organization from potential threats. And so Bob and his crew does an awesome job in making sure that we don't let the emails that we don't want to come through get through on our system. And then because we launched the CRM system earlier, I believe early summer of last year, the CRM mobile downloads is a new data point that's being tracked. I did add Noel Northglenn attendance to this slide. You previously saw the food truck, Magic Fest, Pirate Fest information. We had 950 attendees at Noel Northglenn. We did have a goal of 1,000, so we fell just short of that, but I think as many of you experienced, it was a great event. Excuse me. We produced 12 monthly connection newsletters, and they had perfect drop rates, and that really speaks to when the post office drops the newsletter in your mailbox. And that's a careful timing consideration because sometimes the post office can keep those bins of the newsletters set aside while other stuff goes out. So John does a really great job in staying on schedule with the newsletter, as well as Kim, in making sure that we stay on target given the monthly frequency of that publication. We did not have any Inside Northglenn videos, so that's something that we will work on moving into 2019, and some of that was related to the staffing transitions that we had in communications. Special promotional videos, we did do 18 of those. And so Summer and Kim and John have set a goal of 30 per year. It's a very ambitious goal, but we'll see how we do in working towards that. We've had increased followers on Facebook, increased followers on Twitter, and then I added Instagram to the mix since we've been doing a concerted effort to really have a presence on Instagram. So, it really varies. It's a very personal question and thing in terms of, do you like Facebook over Twitter, over Instagram? Oftentimes you find, and you yourselves probably find this, that you have preferences on what social media tools to use, but we have a presence on those three major social media tools, and we'll continue to work in increasing that. In terms of mentions and stories by local media, We had a total of 83. The goal was 52 this year, and I think as we continue to move forward with some significant projects and efforts, we'll continue to see an increase on that front. And that's part of my expectation. With ward meetings, we had 8 ward meetings in total last year, one, which was the Ward 1 meeting in November. And then Mingle with the Mayor events, we had 7 last year, 1 in Q4. And I do want to apologize that at the last Q3 work plan update, we had previous numbers from a previous mayor included in that report, and on second glance, that wasn't a fair comparison. So my apologies to Mayor Dodge. I took a second look at that, and just, you know, each mayor brings a different approach, and so I wanted to acknowledge that was my oversight. With personnel, just a few year-end numbers. Turnover for 2018 is 14.58%. The majority of that turnover is within our police department. I gave you a number there, 13. Those are officers. So Chief May and I are continuing conversations pretty much weekly in terms of making sure that he has the resources he needs to get staffed up. He is in the process of a commander promotional process, 2 commander positions, and then 3 sergeant positions, right? And received good applicant pools for both of those. We are down 9 officers, so that's probably one of the tougher positions to be hiring for right now, and we'll continue to work to try to get those positions filled, so we're at full force. Fortunately, several of you had attended the swearing-in ceremony that we had. I believe it was in December, and we did lose a couple of the recruits that had graduated from academy and chose to no longer, lost 1 recruit to another agency, and then 1 individual who decided that policing is not for him. In terms of workers' comp claims, we had 34 to date, so a little bit of a bump up. Certainly, we don't want an increased trend with workers' comp claims, but sometimes it's just accidents happen. And so we've got a great risk management analyst, Kathy, and then Paula and the rest of her team. They do a lot around education and trying to prevent accidents whenever possible. I won't go through a lot of the business slides because Debbie did a great job in highlighting all of the work surrounding our business community. So you've already seen a lot of these numbers. On this slide, I do want to draw attention to when you look at total evaluation of building permits, you see that we had a slight increase of $44 million in terms of total evaluation. We did see a bump on the residential valuation side, which I think is an interesting trend in terms of residents investing, making improvements in their homes. And then overall residential permits was 1,843, which was an increase. And then overall land use entitlements was at 23 last year. On the public safety side of things, you can see where there's a significant increase in calls for service within the police department, and I think Chief has done a great job communicating this in previous presentations to you. In terms of arrests, there were 2,636 last year, a bit of a bump up from 2017, a bit of a bump on traffic accidents, and then a decrease on municipal traffic citations. Some of that's related to not having a dedicated traffic unit and just having the decreased staffing levels that we've had at the police officer position level. In terms of neighborhood services, we had a total of 3,080 cases, 4,235 violations, so bumps on both of those fronts. We did have quite a few graffiti cases in the past year, and then no citation, and then a bump up in summonses. So that is the year in review, the 2018 year in review. As I mentioned, I'll provide a mid-year update to council. Right now I have it scheduled for July 1st, and then I'll bring the 2019 year in review to council in early 2020. And I have staff here tonight to help answer any specific questions that you might have about the work plan.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any questions for staff?
Yeah, I had a quick question, and about the homeless. I'm trying to find this. Okay, so the homeless task force. So a couple of my questions were, and maybe I just missed this because I was out this past month, but can you describe to me what the point in time survey was?
You got to draw a straw.
Battle it out?
Any, mini, mighty, mo.
Any of the above?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paula Jensen, Director of Management Services. The point in time study is a look, so we work with Adams County, all the municipalities in the county. There's a time that's designated. It's a 2-day or 3-day? 2-day period where each city participates in an event, and it's called the point in time study. And the goal is to get the homeless individuals in your municipality to come to an event where we can provide them with a warm meal, clothing. We brought in Tri-County to do some hepatitis shot series, things like that, but also to participate in a survey voluntarily to answer questions so that we can capture what the population of homelessness looks like in the municipality. And then the next city does an event 2 hours later. We took all of our leftover resources and took it to the next event. So over the 2-day period, each municipality participated. We had 15 individuals participate in our point in time study. We ran it from 12:30 to 3:30. So, and then we'll wait to hear from Adams County to get more information on what the next steps are.
A couple more questions on the same note. So, has there been any follow-up or any type of, I guess, follow-up from the meeting with the marketplace businesses that was held in April? Have we done anything to kind of circle back to them about what their concerns were and what they brought up?
Sure. We've been working closely within the police department actually over the Christmas holidays, was out there working specifically at Marketplace, undercover, talking to all of the businesses. They actually have created kind of an internal Marketplace, I'm not going to say it's a website, but a way to actually notify all of the people in the Marketplace. So HCP has a way to email everybody in the Marketplace, and so everybody has that same email system. So if there was a problem at, let's just say, one of the stores, that automatically is sent to HCP. HCP then sends it to everybody so that they could actually watch what is going, to make sure that they know that there's a problem in the area. Has there been any more follow-up from it? Just that piece of it. So we haven't had as many complaints as we've had before. I would have to defer to the police chief to find out how many, incidences we've had over there, but I usually hear about them when there's a problem, and I haven't heard anything. So I think the other piece that we've done really well last year was we went and had the same kind of, we went to 3 different centers last year to to invite them to understand what they needed to do at their sites to make them safer, as well as one of the things that they didn't know was they needed to put up public to private no trespassing at each one of those. That has really helped a lot, because before the police could not actually go out there and actually try to remove the people or do something with people that were trespassing. So I think all of our, I may be wrong, but if not, almost all of our commercial sites now have no trespassing signs on them, so the police can actually interact now, where they couldn't go on private property before. So I think that was a good proactive step that we took.
And then my final question for the homeless task force was, at some point, are we going to get a update? It's not tonight, but an update from Chief just about how enforcement is going on the pedestrian location crossings or any other kind of homeless task force or work that he may be doing?
Specific to homelessness?
Yeah, so just enforcement concerns that he's seen, any trends that he's seen.
If that's something, and I'm hearing that that's something you would like, certainly we can work on that and bring that back to council. It's not currently scheduled to come back to council, but if it's council's desire, I can get it scheduled.
I just think it would be nice to, something that we keep revisiting throughout the year of what is the work that we've done, what information have we gathered, and then how are we continuing to address these concerns.
Staff can do that. Okay.
Any other comments? No. None?
None? Thank you. Just one quick correction. Kim just let me know that on the Inside Northglenn videos, there was actually one completed in Q4 and then 4 done in 2018. So that was the correct information. My apologies on that, and thank you.
Thank you. Now you get to rest for half of a year this time, right? It's gonna be good.
Plenty of work to do.
Thank you all too for staff, all of your input to make the 2018 Q4 update possible, so thank you. All right, we'll move to communications this evening. Jenny, we'll start with you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So I have a longer than normal report this evening, so I hope that all of you will bear with me. I'll start with a couple of updates, and then I have 2 items I'd like council to consider. So first, Heather mentioned on Valentine's Day, this Thursday, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board will hear directly from the 10 residents who expressed interest in the Croak Reservoir Subcommittee. And I'm looking forward to working with the advisory board and staff to start moving forward with the formation of this group. And as always, if residents have specific concerns or want to share something that maybe they love about our parks in honor of Valentine's Day, they're always welcome to join us. The advisory board does meet the second Thursday of every month at 5:30 p.m. right here in council chambers. Secondly, next week, I'll be joining Colorado Communities for Climate Action in meeting with Congressman Ed Perlmutter to introduce the organization as well as talk about our collective priorities. 3, Adams 12, along with many other sponsors, are going to host their 10th annual prom dress exchange on March 9th from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Adams 12 5-Star School Educational Services at 128th Avenue in Thornton. And the exchange is open to any high school student with a valid student ID. And they just ask that each person comes with either a dress to exchange or a $10 donation. And then finally, for updates, I'll be attending the Colorado Municipal League's Policy Committee meeting on Friday. And at this meeting, we review legislation and vote on positions that the league will take. And I expect there to be a pretty lively discussion on everything from equal pay for equal work, caustic straws, sales tax, transportation funding, and oil and gas regulations. So if anyone wants to review any of the actions taken or weigh in before the committee meeting, just let me know. Now for the 2 items that I'm bringing before council to consider this evening. The first is regarding our working definition and common understanding of affordable housing. Over the last couple of months, we have started to have conversations about the future of what our city could look like, whether that's through development or redevelopment. And I feel like housing keeps coming up, but I don't know that we're all operating with the same information or with the same definition. And so I'm asking that we schedule a study session in an effort to essentially get us all on the same page as far as, again, what affordable housing looks like in other communities and what it could look like in Northglenn. And my hope is that through this policy discussion, or through this discussion, that we can develop a policy statement that can be a little bit more integrated into a future comp plan, as well as serve as a guideline for future development and redevelopment conversations. So that's one thing I'd love to get consensus on.
Okay. Council, any discussion on that, or just move forward and schedule it at a study session?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, it is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the second item, with 2019 being a municipal election year, candidates are already starting to emerge, and I feel like now is a really critical time to review our campaign finance regulations and make sure that they provide the highest level of transparency and accountability possible. And so I'm asking for a study session, not necessarily to, to really open up the conversation and take a look at our regulations. In particular, there are a couple of things that I'm interested in. I'll quickly list them. One is creating local donation limits and considering separate amounts for the mayor since that office is at large, and as well as limits for city council. Looking at creating a local regulation that requires all contributions of any dollar amount to be disclosed. Modifying the frequency of reporting periods, providing that dependent care, so care for child as well as elders, can be a allowed use of campaign funds by Northglenn candidates. And then also looking at requiring paid-for by disclosures on all campaign materials, whether they're digital or distributed by candidates as well as political action committees. So I'm not necessarily asking for consensus on those items that I just outlined, but really asking for consensus to open up the conversation and take a look at what we have in place and on our books sometime in March.
That would definitely be a bigger discussion also for a study session. Is council on board?
We can open up the discussion and see where it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we all need to have input on that, so.
March might be difficult for scheduling purposes, or?
But, I mean, don't we adhere
Or
to
do we have to do
this,
March?
the Colorado State regulations? I mean, or is this, maybe Joanna can speak to it a little bit, or
We do currently adhere to the state regulations, but we do have the ability to modify those locally.
Thank you.
I'll take a look at the future agendas and then send council an email in terms of when we can best schedule these items based on what's upcoming.
Great. Thank you. That's all for me this evening.
Can that discussion provide data of surrounding municipalities and maybe what they've got in their ordinance also, or their campaign practice?
As a suggestion, Lakewood just passed a whole suite of campaign finance reforms that very much mirror what I suggested, so that might be a great place to start.
So I think my biggest announcement is that I'm here. I made it, finally. So Kyle and I welcomed our third baby. It was a baby girl. We named her Autumn Grace on January 2nd. So I can tell you about the labor story later. It was very intense, but I made it through, and I made through January too. The first month's always the hardest. Tired the past month. But now I've learned how to operate on less. So I'm here. I'm happy to be back. And I feel like I have a lot to learn. So sorry if I'm asking excessive questions. A couple other announcements that I have is, so I was appointed by the Adams County Commissioners to sit on the Tri-County Board of Health, and so I'll be starting that tomorrow. Will be my first meeting, so I'm excited to start and join that group. Obviously, Tri-County is for Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas, and so I'll be representing Northglenn and representing Fort, so that'll be fun. And then also this year I'm also starting another adventure, and that is going to be, I was, I guess, selected to be vice chair for NADA, which is one of the committees I sit on with Joyce, and so it'll be interesting to learn more about that group as we continue throughout this next year and taking a more active role. Again, excited to learn it. And that's all I have.
Congratulations on all your news. Okay, Marcy.
All right, so last week I attended the court's groundbreaking, and I think probably one of the more fun groundbreakings that I've been to, because it was great to see 3 owners bring all of their family out. We had kids that were excited to get into the pictures, and just nice to be able to see their family support and backing on a huge endeavor that they're about to undertake. And it sounds like they're really pushing to be open in September. And you mentioned that they will also have pickleball, and so that'll be great.
Okay. I would first just like to thank the council for unanimously adopting the UDO and the zoning map district. I think it's amazing. It's a great accomplishment, not a good accomplishment, a great accomplishment for Northglenn. So thank you all for voting yes on that. Important. I was proud to be a part of the cutting of the ribbon at the Ralston House building. You know, they offer such a great service. Unfortunately, it's a necessary service for child victims of abuse or crimes. So it's not a great use, but the building is wonderful and will serve those children well. So I was proud to be there. And I was also at the court's groundbreaking, which was great, and they're going to really offer a lot of great courts. They will have basketball, volleyball, all competitive teams coming in there. They even told me about a major, a baton twirling championship that they want to have come in there. So they're really going to be used, and there is such a need up here in this area for this use. So it's going to be a great building, and I'm sure they will be successful. I did help assist for the collection of resident photos and stories that staff did over in the senior center for the 50th anniversary. A lot of the suggestions our muralist will be using when he does the painting in the tunnel. So I would like to thank the people who showed up and shared with us that evening. And just announce to the community that if you would like to partake in the Art on Parade sculpture selection for 2019, it's open to everyone to come help pick from a list of sculptures. And it will be at 5:30 on February 20th. That's a Wednesday in the theater. So that's it.
Do you have to RSVP to Michael, or do you have to do anything? Because usually they have a little dinner.
I don't, do they want RSVPs? Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I guess you have to RSVP to Michael Stricker, but I really don't think he would turn you away if you came to vote on the sculptures, because I've been there quite a few times, and the more bodies, the better. So, yeah.
We just want to make sure we can feed everybody.
Okay, that's right. I forgot about the food part. Thank you.
Serve more food. We don't have a whole lot for this week. We have the Finance Committee met. Joanne, I wanted to check with you on we had a couple requests for sponsorship, and I wanted to see when we were having our next meeting, or has that been scheduled?
It hasn't. I sent an email to the committee members today, so hopefully we can get a day and a time chosen soon.
Okay, perfect. For future reference, it's really great to send me those sponsorship requests to Joanna directly, because she pulls a bunch of information for us so that we can determine what we're doing with it. Thank you. You asked very interesting, or you said something kind of interesting when I was making fun of my husband. Hey, Cammie, they record this, they watch it live. She sits on Joe's lap, and they watch council meeting every week. So, yeah, that's my family. What can I say? We love Northglenn. Other than the NER meeting this Wednesday and the evaluation committee tomorrow, I won't be at City Hall for.
Joyce? Okay. The first thing I think I want to mention is, let's see, Ron Sladek, who we hired from the Historic Commission to write the nomination for St. Stephen's Church, has submitted the first draft to the State Historic Preservation Office. So we'll see. They're in a 30-day comment period. Once they get the comments back, then they'll submit a final draft to go to the state, and then we'll see what happens. So we're really excited about that. Then the next thing, which is just as exciting, I think, is I wanted to have a shout out to Lyle Jackson. He's going to celebrate his 100th birthday on February 13th, and he's a Northglenn resident.
Wow.
And he's also a World War II veteran and has been very active. So I just wanted to recognize him.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Mayor. Joanna?
I do have two quick items, actually. To follow up on the passport program, the statistics for January of this year they've come in up 28% over January of last year. So we are super excited that the activity is increasing. And since word of mouth has contributed to our success, I wanted to take just a minute to encourage anyone who might need passport services to contact us. Even though the activity has increased so much, we can almost always offer same-day appointments. So please come see us. We continue to meet such wonderful customers. It's really one of the best parts of our jobs. And then to piggyback on Councilmember Wilford's item regarding the election, we have received some inquiries from potential candidates. So we will be updating the city's website in the next couple weeks, hopefully, to get all of the basic candidate information out there. Even though it seems early in the year, we want to get that information out by March 1st so that people can start thinking about whether or not they would like to run this November. And that's all.
Sounds good. Thank you, Joanna. Heather?
Thank you, Mayor Dodge. Our municipal court judge, Corinne Magid, has been appointed by Governor Polis to serve as a Jefferson County judge. So unfortunately, well, this is exciting news for her. It's unfortunate news for us because we will be losing her. The reason I bring this up tonight is I'm looking for council direction on how you'd like to proceed with filling our judge vacancy that will be forthcoming. I did reach out to Judge Magid earlier today and left her a voicemail to find out exactly her timeline, but it sounded from the voicemail she left me last week that it was going to be fairly quickly, in which case we can we have a relief judge that we can ask to step in. And so with that, Corey, do you have anything you want to add to that ask?
Heather and I talked earlier, and certainly we put a process together in 2014. This is one of your employees, so we would be putting together a process essentially for you. And I think what Heather and I are seeking is direction to start that process.
I think we have to.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll use the 2014 process as a model. I'm not sure it'll be apples to apples because at the time we had a sitting judge that then evaluated them coming in and acting as the judge for one session. I don't know that we'll have that opportunity this time because of the timing, but we have the ad from 2014 and can proceed accordingly.
Yeah. And that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
And just one item is, well, it's great that the UDO was adopted. I want to say it was like saying goodbye to an old friend because Northglenn has had that ordinance in place for an awful long time, and it is one of the original kind of Euclidean forms of zoning ordinances. So I wanted to make sure it was said goodbye to it in a proper way.
Don't cry, Corey.
All right, we will have public invited to be heard. I only see Spencer. Are you going to speak this evening? All right, then I will not read that. All right, I would make a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and enter into executive session pursuant to Section 4.5, Parent G of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter to discuss negotiations concerning the purchase, sale, lease, or other acquisition of real or personal property or interest therein, or concerning any contracts except those required to be the subject of competitive bidding. All right, Joanna, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
Thank you. And where are we meeting?
Here.
In here, staying in here. Okay. Thank you. We are adjourned.